Good evening. Welcome to the PoliticIt podcast. Tonight we have Burgess Owens with us, Congressman from the 4th Congressional District in Utah. Great to have you, Burgess.
John, same here, and it was great hanging out with you at the convention.
Oh, wasn't
what a
hey,
blast! What a blast it was.
wasn't that an amazing convention? I just it hit me while we were sitting there that hey, the Country Club Republican Party is over.
Yes, that's done.
Right?
We were talking about this before. This is a party of we the people, truly. The hardworking person gets out there, roll up their sleeves, want to dream big. And what I love about where we are now, and we talked about this earlier too, I've never felt this kind of unity until back when the Reagan days, when we had this growth of patriotism and confidence in a particular leader. And now what's happened with Trump, he's gotten that. He's gotten all of us on board, and you're right. It's
to see Nikki Haley there, right?
Yeah.
To see Ron DeSantis there, to see the unity that was coming forward, and actually to see Spencer Cox reverse on his thing about Trump. I thought was marvelous. To see us coming together like this as a party, I think is
well. John, I tell you what I'm seeing is the best of America. We're going to be different. That's who we are. We're proud to have a chance to have our different voices. But the last few years have shown that our country is truly under attack. You bring COVID into it. You bring the riots in place. You bring the October 7th. You see our kids growing up and not having empathy and understand what evil looks like. As Americans, I don't care what side of the aisle we're sitting on, particularly as Republicans, we're saying, you know what, we got to do better than this. We got to figure out a way to truly bring our values back through again. And Trump just happens to be that person who's bold enough. And I'll say that the iconic picture of him standing up as a wounded soldier and wounded warrior, the beautiful
putting his fist in the air and basically saying we need to fight.
That is so who we are. And so I'm proud to be not only part of this remarkable party, but during these times when we're really coming together again. And so it's very exciting times in that regard.
So this thing that's coming up now with Trump versus Kamala and the Democrats, I think that it's kind of interesting the divide there.
Yes.
She just announced her VP pick today.
She did, and I think what I like about where we are is couldn't be a bigger contrast in terms of what the vision of our country is. The person she got as the vice president was the guy who let Minneapolis burn. By the way, who got hurt most during those riots are black business owners. And when you destroy businesses, you're destroying the opportunity to become part of the middle class. And the middle class is what's made our country the great country it is. So we're seeing quite a difference. And it's obvious that we have a choice now. We have a choice of sealing the border, safety, bringing our inflation down, allowing business to run without all the rules and regulations going on right now, making sure that we're seeing each other from inside out, not outside in, which is with that DEI stuff. We talked about that a little earlier. The worst thing we can do is go back to the 60s of judging each other based on color, and that's what the hard left wants to have happen. So and I'll tell you that this is my message, because I know as a country we have a lot of good people on both sides of the aisle. What my message is for Democrats who love our country, be careful about what's guiding and directing your party right now. We have a party that is turning our country upside down. If you just look at the last 4 years.
Yeah, show me a single city in the U.S. where people are better off because Democrats are in charge.
You won't find it. What you find is folks that are hopeless, angry, desperate, they're illiterate, jobless. You see so much pain and misery, and that's not who we are. Our country is one in which we've always sought to become a more perfect union. And what that looks like is that as Americans, those of us who succeed, we reach back and try to help those who come with us. That's the power of the middle class, by the way. It's such a true empathetic group, a class of people that hardworking, they're faith-built, they want to have a good name and have a great legacy, and you build that sector up to be a big thing. You have a more attractive country, and more people can live their American dream. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And my message is, let's look at these two candidates. Let's look at their history. Let's look at, do we go toward for American capitalism, we go toward Marxism, and that's the fight. That's the decision we're making right now, and I think we're going to make the right one.
It's interesting that with Marxism, you had this battle between the so-called the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things people mistake is that the bourgeoisie was the emerging middle class, right? It was the factory owners, it was the businessmen that you talk about. And this wasn't a fight with the ruling class, right?
Yeah.
And what we see in countries like Venezuela, for instance, right? You really have they've essentially wiped out the whole middle class.
Oh yeah. And that's when you look at those who want control and power, the most dangerous sector, the most dangerous class is the middle class. And it's those folks, because they know what it is to have absolutely nothing, to have nothing but a dream, to continue to tenaciously build and keep coming back. There's something that comes with that. There's an empathy that comes with it. There's a belief that, we can do anything. And that can be contagious is what it is. And that's why I say that what powers the middle class are the small business owners. You wonder why Utah is such an attractive state, the fastest growing state in the union for the last couple of years, actually for about 10 years, I think, the happiest state. It's because we have so many risk takers. People, actually it's our culture. We're the culture that send our kids out to places nobody wants to visit. They have to overcome a lot of stress, a lot of being uncomfortable, but they come back and they realize what it is to be risk takers. Business ownership, when you succeed, you build this middle class, and the middle class is the first class. Say, I don't want government to come in and mess with me. Leave me alone. Let me be my independent person. I'm going to vote for people who believe in independence, our Constitution, versus those who believe in power of a central government, and that is a big threat to the hard left.
Well, if you look at the latest Gini indexes, which actually measures income inequality, Utah is at the top. We're one of the best states in terms of the lack of inequality, so to speak, right? And I think you've hit it on the head, because it is the fact that we're entrepreneurial. It's the fact that we have a strong business sector. And we're talking about startup businesses, and we're talking about small businesses, right?
That's right. And those who've heard me talk, I always like to reflect back on my upbringing, because I grew up in the same type of environment. Even though it was in the 60s, it was a segregated community. My first exposure to white Americans was until I was 16 years old. The foundation, the tenets were exactly the same as Utah. And those tenets, faith, family, the free market, and education. If you put those tenets together and you allow it to thrive, that's where you get the middle class from. And I don't care what your background is, how much money you came into this country with, what language you spoke when you first came here. That is the American way. And those are the tenets that make Utah such a unique place. We truly are leading the country in so many ways. And for people to come here and not only love our state, but say we're the happiest state in the union. It's kind of different. It's weird to be so happy, but that's because we're also very optimistic. We see opportunities. We see our families growing, and so I'll say this: we need to not take for granted this remarkable culture we've developed. The goal right now is how do we spread it, and that's why representatives like yourself, and I love this. And I say this all the time. There's no state that collaborates the way we do. We punch above our weight. We sit down and have this conversation about what is it that we stay with the federal states with our lane, state states with their lane, but we can still support and give voice to each other, and we can collaborate. That's a very unique place to be, and that's why, again, Utah is doing the great things we're doing right now.
Well, we're going to take a break, and we'll come right back.
Okay.
Hey Siri, how do I get to the state capitol?
John, the fastest way to get to the Capitol is to make a lot of empty promises, to get help from special interest groups and endorsements from politicians. You will also need to buy a better suit.
That's not going to work for me, Siri. You need to find another way.
John, listen to me. If you're going to win your race, you will need to play the political game. You also need to use more hairspray and buy a golden retriever. Also, a new phone case would be nice.
That's enough of this.
John, are you there? Did you just leave me on the road? Fine. Keep your principles, John.
My name's John Johnson. I'm not running to be part of a system, and I don't owe anyone special favors. I'm running to listen to and work for you. I'm running to get results. Welcome back to PoliticIt. Of course, we're talking to Burgess Owens, Congressman Burgess Owens, I should say, 4th Congressional District. Great. It's so great to talk to you. You know, right before we took a break, you said something about being weird in Utah, right? And it just kind of blows me away that the Democrats are using that against J.D. Vance, saying the guy's weird, right?
Yeah, I think there are times that they project. They want to make sure maybe they grab a word before everybody else realizes that is really who they are. You think about what America First looks like. You think about the fact we want to be safe, we want to raise our families, we want our business to grow and prosper, we want to be able to have a way to retire and live the American dream. We want to live in this freedom bubble.
You know, it's interesting that the Democrats think that's a bad thing.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah. That's because they're weird. No, everything, and the point I was making earlier, and this is what's so important. Those 4 tenets are so important because that's who Americans always been. When you talk about becoming a more perfect union, from a world at times when people were just we were not assimilating, we were, and that's across the board, everywhere, to where we now have a place where in my family represents Black, white, Hispanic, American Indian, and Trinidadian, and we call each other family. That is the American way. You look at the other side. You look at the Marxist side. They hate faith, family, the free market, and education. So yes, you talk about success, you talk about wealth, you talk about going out and producing something that people want, and they win and you win because now you prosper and you now can build a business that expands its middle class. That to them is a threat. So they hate business ownership. They hate for us to talk about God as if, because they want to be looked at as the God, the source. Right. So we say, no, there's only one God. No matter how we worship him, as long as we do worship him, we are a much better country because we treat each other better. The family unit, I saw this personally when I was growing up again in the 60s. We were, because of those 4 tenets, had the fastest growing middle class. We had a high percentage of men committed to marriage. 70% of Black men were committed to their families. And more Black women knew they would actually get married than white women. We lost that because we allowed that ideology that destroys the family unit to come in. Welfare was part of it, putting down men, putting down women. So we understand what it is to destroy. I've seen it happen, and we want to make sure we don't let that happen and move forward. Protect the family unit, protect our business owners, protect our ability to have our faith, and make sure we're educated to have such pride in not only how far we've come, the mistakes we've made, but also we have this remarkable vision of what we can accomplish by building on what our parents and our ancestors have done before us. Well, you know, this whole idea that comes up of equity, if we really believed in that idea of really, and I would prefer to use the term equality, right? If we really believed that, then we would teach our kids to read and write and do math. Can I say this, John? That term was switched on purpose. Equality and equity are two totally different things. Equality is just give me a chance. Equality is what I believed in as a kid, my parents believed in. Give us a chance. We're going to work harder, study harder, and we'll command respect because on an equal basis, we can win. We're going to get out there and produce ourselves. And because it's equal, we're going to command your respect. Equity is totally different. It's outcome. It's what the socialists believe in. It's the idea that for some reason we aren't all the same, that we don't have the same opportunity. And what's interesting about the hard left, the Marxists, understand where they believe that we're deficit, Black Americans. It's not on the football field, not on the basketball field. It's always in the intellectual realm. They believe that we can't think the way they think. We're not as intelligent. And I grew up with this in the 60s. It's hard to believe we're having the same conversation where things like DEI, they lower the standards. So Blacks don't have to work as hard because the expectations aren't as high. That is the worst racism you'll ever see, and that's not America. We are people that says we have this God-given talents. It's all different talents, but it's enough that no matter who you are, you can bring them out if given an opportunity. So yes, you teach our kids how to read, write, and think, and we can run circles around anybody else, just like anybody else who learns how to read, write, and think. So,
well, I look at my own life and say, I grew up in a lower middle class family. We struggled, but one of the things that was different about me was that I did really well in school, right? And so that helped me to what you call live the American dream, right?
Yeah. This is the thing, and this is the downside of buying into this idea of privilege. We are privileged if we live in America. I was extremely privileged to have a remarkable family, a mom and a dad who loved us, who had high expectations. So I was very, very privileged, who demanded discipline. But to say that it has anything to do with skin color is extremely racist. And so what we have to kind of understand is that as we have our conversations about life, we all have the same experiences. We know what it is to be excited about success. We also know what it is to be disappointed with failure or whatever. So we all go through the same experiences. The key is, how do we make sure we're giving people the hope that they can find within themselves the ability to keep moving forward? The nine most strongest, important words that one American can tell another one, I believe, is, if I can do it, you can do it. America is a place of hope. And as long as people are hopeful, they'll take another step the next day to keep moving until they finally realize, I can do this, I can succeed. And I can turn around and tell other people how to do the same thing. And again, that is the message of the middle class. Yeah. We're the class that says, what, guys, what I've done, believe me, there's a lot of struggles. I can tell you, I've made a lot of mistakes, but if I can do it, you can do it.
Right.
And that class has to continue to prosper and grow for our country to continue to move forward.
Well, you look at your own life, right? You didn't grow up with privilege, right? You didn't, but you believed in yourself.
Yeah.
You've got that Super Bowl ring on your finger, right?
And I'll say this.
Now you're a member of Congress.
Yeah. And I'll say this. Because of my upbringing, I grew up during that time when Black Americans led the country in the growth of the middle class. I was part of the middle class. I had not, my exposure to white Americans wasn't until I was 16 years old, but around me were plumbers, engineers, doctors, lawyers, you name it. And we bought from each other because we were segregated communities. So that community was continually growing. I was a kid that at 5 years old lived in Liberia, Africa, because my dad was doing research in Liberia. I was a kid that when I was 16, we took a trip from Tallahassee, Florida, in a pop-up tent to California, to Canada, back to North and South Dakota, and hit every single national park there was, because my parents believed in education. We had every single national park. So the middle class, again, I've experienced it. I know what that looks like. And I'll say this, whether you're there in the middle class now or you want to get there, it's all possible. My grandfather was a third grade dropout, but yet his son, my dad, got his PhD at Ohio State. That's the American dream.
Yeah. And
it was based on tenacity, grit, and I'm just going to grow and make things happen. And parents who believed in that their kids should stand on their shoulders.
So PhD in what?
Agronomy. He was in agriculture. Yeah.
Oh, that's...
Yeah. He came back from World War II.
So is he a professor?
He was a professor for 40 years and an entrepreneur. And here's the thing that's interesting about that group of people. Dad went to war, 18 years old, came back. Grew up in Tallahassee. I grew up in Texas, where at that time, because Jim Crow laws, you could not get a postgraduate degree. I ran across a box of letters after he passed away. I was going through all this stuff. He never brought this box out, never talked about it. Rejection letters from colleges across the country. And I looked through, I saw the response, I saw his grades. He was smart enough to get there, but he was Black. It just so happened that group and that generation said, you tell me I can, I'm going to show you how I can. He kept going until he got to Ohio State. He and his brother graduated from Ohio State. That's where I was born. My brother in economics, he taught at Purdue and then University of Houston. My dad for 40 years at FAMU. And not only that, they both are business owners. My dad had a 500-acre farm that I actually thought about joining him one day, and I decided that that's a lot of hard work.
Yes.
But my point is, if we take a look at our true history, then you'll say that there's no group you can feel sorry for, because every group has dreamers, has tenacious people who believe in themselves and want better, and they believe in their communities, and they want to give their communities a chance to really show themselves. And the Black community was exactly the same way. One last point, in terms of expectations. In those days, we had books like the Jet magazine and Ebony magazine. And you know what I remember about that? You see it in every single black doctor's office, in a barbershop, and they all had success stories of black Americans, of the first astronaut. I mean, all these, the first pilot. So we were exposed to success growing up. So it's not a surprise when you finally say, I can be successful.
Yeah.
When I went to the University of Miami, it was to be a marine biologist, not to be an NFL player. It just so happened that I found talent there. But because of my experience, I had this dream that that's what I'd like to do. And so anyway, that's so important.
That's amazing. I mean, that is the American dream, right?
It's the American dream.
That's what's drawn you into this America First.
Exactly.
Group, right?
And you know, John, if we turn the tables, you can tell the same story that I'm telling. You talk about the struggles, about people might not believe in you at some point, somebody telling you can do certain things and they give you that uplift. And what we've all learned through the struggles. We've all failed in so many different ways, but what you learn from it is the reason why we go through it. If you take that attitude that everything is for our good, then it works out to be a whole different prospect in terms of what life looks like.
One last thing I want to ask you about. We talked about this before, but national debt.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about that? Because I think we have guilt on both sides of the aisle, right?
It's a great topic. It's a great topic, and the way we fix it is get a Republican House, Senate, and President Trump. This is one of those things that we talk about all the time, and until we can be honest about what that conversation looks like, what concerns me, and I talked about this earlier, is we have people on our side. We start talking about a budget. In some kind of way, they can conflate the debt, and it's two different conversations.
Right.
When we start talking about the debt, here are the three things you're going to hear. You're going to hear about Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. If those are not part of the conversation, we're not talking about debt. Now, when can we talk about debt? We're going to finally get the House, a Senate, and a president who cares about it and will make it work. Because there's some hard decisions, and there's also innovation. I look at the innovation, the things that we have to bring forward. We look at Social Security. Not only can we keep the promises for those who put into it, we can give a promise to our kids who have not entered it yet. We can innovate so they have such a better lifestyle by the time they get there, because we can innovate to give them those options, those choices. But we can't do it if one side uses fear. And right now, anytime that we bring it up, we don't have the option to take it all the way through, the Democrats will use fear to keep it the way it is, even though we're running out. Even though things are not looking good,
right.
They don't want to innovate. They want to bring fear into the process. And I'll be honest with you, that is the way that party works. If you're fearful for somebody because of their color, if you're fearful for somebody because of whatever it is, then we just don't move forward. And so we have to make sure we don't use that.
So the first step, and you kind of brought this up, the first step to attacking the debt crisis is to first attack the deficit problem, right?
Yes.
And bring that under control.
We do that by, and again, I'm not an expert in these areas, but I know based on what Trump has talked about is how we bring so much more revenue in. How about we become not only energy independent, but a provider of energy around the world? How about if we take away the rules for the business owners, so allow them to really build their businesses and put so much more money back into the system that we can begin to erase debt by getting the revenue that we have to come in. And then we start looking at where are we losing and just wasting money. And there's a lot of waste in government. And I think we have a president who's finally seeing it. He's an entrepreneur. He's a business owner.
Right.
He knows how to look at the return on investment. We're going to come in because of the unity we have as a party. I'll say the first time that not only do we have, and by the way, we don't need a red wave this time. We just need 10 or 15 of seats that we're above, because we have a leader that we trust, that we believe in, and that leader is tight, is close with our speaker. Speaker Mark Johnson. So the things that Speaker Johnson will do, because he has the partnership with a president that everybody respects, we'll get so much more done and have so little of the chaos we're seeing right now when everybody's doing their own thing. So we're going to attack the debt issue, because it is truly national. It's a national security issue. We cannot give this to our kids. We cannot be beholden to China with the debt we have now. So we understand it. Every single time we get together a week, that somebody stands up and says, this is what our debt is right now. So believe me, we know that. Along with debt and our education. Education is the next piece. We can do everything else right. if we do not teach our kids how to think, how to have a confidence and talk to each other, how to have pride in their past so they can have this remarkable vision for where we're heading off to, if we can't do that, we're going to lose it. And we're seeing that happen now with these kids coming out, hating our country, being in debt, and not being able to contribute anything because they don't think they can. So we have to change that, and education will make that happen.
Very good. So we're out of time. Any parting thoughts?
I just want to say this, and I say as often as I can. I've been in Utah for 10 years now. We have 6 kids and 17 grands that are all Utahn. I cannot thank Utah enough for the culture you've developed here. Now, we can't take for granted we're here, we just live our life, but there's something our parents have given us about our priorities, our faith, the ability to give back and serve. Those things we have to pass down to our kids, and we've done such a great job of doing that up to this point. Let's keep it up. I think we can be such a great beam of light for the rest of the country, particularly with the inland port we're looking at building, with the Olympics we're going to end up having here. We're going to show the country how the collaboration, how we the people focus really does work, and we just have to keep it going and make sure we keep fighting for it.
Well, thank you. Burgess Owens, thank you. We'll see you guys next week.